I woke up to the sound of strangers moving through my house. Not the comfortable shuffle of familiar feet, not the soft creak of floorboards I'd learned to love over 42 years. This was different. Sharp, purposeful, invasive. The kind of noise that makes your heart squeeze before your mind can catch up. I lay still in my bed, the morning light filtering through curtains I'd sewn myself 3 decades ago, and listened. Voices in the hallway. A man I didn't recognize, speaking in that falsely gentle tone people use when they think you're fragile. My son's voice responding. Low, controlled. The voice he used when he'd already made a decision and didn't want to argue about it. Something felt off. I should have seen it earlier. But when you love someone the way a mother loves a son, you make excuses. You tell yourself you're imagining things. You convince yourself that the distance, the impatience, the way he looks at his phone when you're talking, it's all just modern life. Everyone's busy, everyone's stressed. At 73 years old, you learn to notice the small things, the way someone's smile doesn't quite reach their eyes anymore, the pause before they say they'll visit, the careful way they ask about your health, like they're filling out a form instead of talking to their mother. I heard footsteps approaching my bedroom door. Before I could sit up, before I could smooth my hair or gather myself, the door opened. My son Daniel stood there, but he wasn't alone. 2 people in navy blue scrubs flanked him, professional, prepared, already treating my bedroom like a place they had permission to be. Daniel's face was set in that expression I'd seen before, the same one he wore when he told me his father and I were being unreasonable about paying for his graduate school. The same one when he explained why he couldn't come home for Thanksgiving 3 years running. Determined, slightly annoyed that he had to do this at all. "Mom," he said, and even that single word carried a weight I didn't want to understand. "We need to talk. Before you continue, tell me where you're watching from. What time is it there? If this story is already touching something in you, leave a like. Subscribe to see what happens next. Because what I'm about to tell you, what happened over the next 48 hours, it changed everything. Let me take you back. Let me show you how we got here. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I'm 73 years old. I live in a 3-bedroom house on Maple Street, the same house my husband Robert and I bought in 1983 when Daniel was just 2 years old. Robert died 6 years ago. Heart attack, quick. He was here one moment, telling me about a bird he'd seen in the backyard and gone the next. The grief nearly destroyed me. But I'm not the type to crumble. My mother raised me in post-war Michigan, in a house where crying was something you did alone and work was something you did until your hands bled. I learned to bake bread at 8. I learned to balance a checkbook at 10. I learned that survival wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It was getting up every morning even when your bones ached and your heart felt hollow. So after Robert died, I got up. I maintained the house. I kept the garden Robert had loved. I volunteered at the library on Tuesdays. I attended my book club on Thursday evenings. I took walks every morning, rain or shine, because movement keeps you alive and stillness invites death. I wasn't wealthy, but I wasn't poor. Robert had been an accountant, careful, methodical. We had savings, a pension, Social Security. The house was paid off. I had more than enough to live comfortably, to handle my own affairs, to maintain my independence. And I had Daniel, or at least, I thought I did. Daniel had always been ambitious. Even as a child, he approached life like a business plan. Other kids played. Daniel strategized. He got straight A's, not because he loved learning, but because anything less wasn't acceptable to him. He married Claire when he was 28, a woman as polished and calculating as he was. They had 2 children, my grandchildren, Sophia, now 16, and Marcus, 13. I used to see them often. When they were small, Claire would bring them over on Saturday afternoons. We'd bake cookies. I'd read them stories. Marcus would fall asleep in my lap while Sophia carefully organized my button collection into color-coded rows. So serious and focused, so much like her father. But children grow up. Claire went back to work. Daniel got promoted, then promoted again. They moved to a bigger house across town, 35 minutes away. Not far, Daniel insisted. Just far enough that spontaneous visits stopped happening. At first they came for holidays, then just major holidays, then just Christmas. Then Christmas became a rushed 2-hour visit where everyone checked their phones and talked about traffic. I told myself it was normal. Families drift, life gets complicated, but deep down, I already knew. I knew when Daniel started asking pointed questions about my finances. Casual at first, just checking in, making sure I was managing okay. Mom, do you need help with your bills? Mom, are you sure you're keeping track of everything? Mom, I worry about you in this big house all alone. I'd smile, reassure him. Show him my neat filing system, my organized records, my monthly budgets written in my careful handwriting. I was fine, more than fine. He'd nod, smile back, but his eyes would flicker to Claire, some silent communication passing between them that I wasn't meant to understand. Then about 8 months ago, something shifted. Daniel started visiting more often, once a week, sometimes twice. He'd arrive unannounced, letting himself in with the spare key I'd given him years ago for emergencies. Just checking on you, Mom. Just wanted to make sure everything's okay. Just thought I'd see if you needed anything. At first, I was touched. My son, finally making time for me. Finally prioritizing his mother the way I'd prioritized him his entire life. But the visits felt strange. He wasn't really present. He'd walk through the house like he was cataloging it. He'd glance at papers on my desk. He'd ask about my medications, my doctor's appointments, my daily routine. He'd comment on things that didn't matter. This carpet's getting worn, Mom. Have you been forgetting to water your plants? You left the stove on yesterday, didn't you? I can smell gas. I hadn't left the stove on. I never left the stove on. I'd been cooking for 50 years. I knew my own kitchen. But he said it with such certainty, such concern, that for a moment I doubted myself. That's how it starts, isn't it? The small suggestions, the careful implications, the loving worry that's really something else entirely. Claire started coming with him. She'd smile her bright, practiced smile and compliment things that didn't need complimenting. Eleanor, you're looking tired. Are you sleeping enough? Eleanor, this house is so much work. Don't you find it exhausting? Eleanor, we just worry. At your age, things can happen so quickly. At my age. Those 3 words became a refrain, a gentle cage they were building around me, bar by bar. I started noticing other things. Papers in my study weren't quite where I'd left them. My address book had been moved. My financial documents, usually in the 2nd drawer of my desk, were in the 3rd. When I mentioned it to Daniel, he laughed. That indulgent laugh adults give children who've said something silly. Mom, you probably just forgot where you put them. Mom, that's normal at your age. Mom, maybe it's time we talked about getting you some help around here. I wasn't forgetting anything. My mind was sharp. Sharper than his, probably. I did the Sunday crossword in pen. I managed my own investments. I could recite the phone numbers of everyone I'd ever loved, even the ones who were gone. But doubt is insidious. When someone you love keeps suggesting you're losing your grip, you start wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe you are slipping. Maybe you're the last to know. 3 months ago, Daniel suggested I give him power of attorney. Just as a safety measure, Mom. Just in case something happens. Just to make things easier. We were sitting in my kitchen. I'd made tea. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, landing on the table where Daniel and I had done his homework 30 years ago, where Robert and I had paid bills and planned vacations and built our life together. I looked at my son, really looked at him, his expensive suit, his Rolex watch, his perfectly styled hair, the way he tapped his fingers impatiently on the table, like this conversation was taking too long, like he had somewhere more important to be. When had he become this person? Or had he always been this person, and I'd been too close to see it? I don't think that's necessary, Daniel. His jaw tightened, just slightly, just enough. Mom, I'm trying to help you. I don't need help. Everyone needs help eventually. But not yet. Silence. The kind that feels like a warning. We'll talk about it later, he said finally, standing up. He left his tea untouched. After that, the visits changed again. Daniel came by with documents. Financial assessments, brochures for senior living communities, articles about elderly people who'd been scammed, who'd had accidents, who'd died alone in their homes and weren't found for days. I'm not trying to scare you, Mom. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From yourself. Those two words hung in the air like poison. Claire became more insistent, more present. She'd show up with cleaning supplies and start reorganizing my kitchen. Eleanor, you don't need all these dishes. Eleanor, this food in your pantry is expired. Eleanor, wouldn't you be happier somewhere with people your own age? Where someone could check on you? Where you wouldn't have to worry about maintaining this big house all alone? I'd stand in my own kitchen, watching this woman pack up things that belonged to me, and feel something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't concern. This was something else. I started keeping my important documents locked in a safe Robert had installed years ago. I started being more careful about what I said, what I revealed. I started watching Daniel and Claire the way you watch strangers. 2 weeks ago, Daniel came by with a new suggestion. Mom, I think you should come stay with us for a while. Why? Because we're worried about you. You're alone too much. It's not healthy. I'm fine alone. Are you? Really? He leaned forward, and something in his eyes made my stomach turn. Mom, you're forgetting things. Leaving the stove on, getting confused. We can't keep worrying about you like this. It's affecting our whole family. Sophia's been crying because she's so worried about her grandmother. Marcus can't sleep. Claire and I are stressed all the time, wondering if you're okay. Every word was a lie. I knew it. But he said it with such conviction, such apparent pain, that anyone listening would believe him. I'm not coming to stay with you. Then we need to look at other options. What other options? He pulled out another brochure. Meadowbrook Senior Living, a nursing home. High end, he assured me. The best in the area. Private rooms, activities, professional care. Absolutely not. Mom, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm 73, not 93. I'm healthy. I'm capable. I'm living in my own home, and I'm going to continue living in my own home. Daniel's face hardened. We'll see about that. He left. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. I should have known then. I should have acted. But part of me still wanted to believe this was concern, not calculation. Still wanted to believe my son loved me more than he loved whatever he was planning. I was wrong. Last week, Daniel showed up with Claire and a man I'd never met. Professional, suit and tie, briefcase. Mom, this is Dr. Stevens. He's a geriatric specialist. We've asked him to do an assessment. I didn't agree to any assessment. Mom, please, just talk to him. Answer a few questions. Let us put our minds at ease. Dr. Stevens smiled. Professional, practiced, the kind of smile that means nothing. He asked me questions. What day was it? Who was the president? Could I count backwards from 100 by sevens? I answered everything correctly. Obviously. He asked about my daily routine, my medications, my medical history. I answered clearly, precisely, providing more detail than necessary just to prove how sharp I was. He took notes, nodded, thanked me for my time. After he left, I asked Daniel what that was about. Just covering our bases, Mom. Bases for what? He didn't answer. 3 days ago, I received a certified letter. A psychiatric evaluation had been ordered, based on concerns raised by family members. A hearing was scheduled to determine my mental competency. I read that letter 3 times, each time feeling like the floor was dropping out from under me. My son was trying to have me declared incompetent. My son was trying to take control of my life. I called Daniel immediately. "What is this?" "Mom, it's for your own good. Who are you to decide what's good for me? I'm your son. I love you, and I can't watch you destroy yourself." "I'm not destroying anything." "Mom, you're not well. You don't see it, but everyone else does. Dr. Stevens confirmed it. You're showing signs of cognitive decline, early dementia. You need care." "That's a lie." "It's not a lie. It's a medical opinion. From a doctor you paid to say exactly what you wanted him to say." Silence on the other end of the line. "I'm trying to help you," he said finally. "Why won't you let me help you?" "Because this isn't help," I thought. "This is theft." I hung up. I sat in my living room, in the house I'd lived in for 42 years, and felt the walls closing in. I called my lawyer, a man named Frank Morrison, who'd handled Robert's will, our estate planning, all our legal affairs for decades. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry, but I can't represent you in this matter." "Why not?" A pause, uncomfortable. "Daniel retained me last month. There's a conflict of interest." My son had gotten to my lawyer first. I called 3 other lawyers. 2 didn't call back. The third told me their calendar was full for the next 6 months. I was being systematically isolated. That was 2 days ago. Yesterday morning, I woke early. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table and thought about my options. I could fight this in court, but Daniel had resources I didn't. Money, time, a carefully constructed narrative, a paid professional willing to say I was incompetent. I could run. But where? And how would that look? A 73-year-old woman fleeing her own son. It would only prove his point. I could do nothing. Let the hearing happen. Trust that truth would prevail. But I'd lived long enough to know that truth doesn't always prevail. Sometimes power does. I was still sitting there, still turning options over in my mind, when I heard the key in the lock. Daniel, letting himself in, again. But this time he wasn't alone. I heard the voices, the professional tone, the navy blue scrubs, and I understood. He wasn't waiting for the hearing. He was taking me now. I stood up, smoothed my robe, steadied myself. When Daniel opened my bedroom door, when I saw the determination in his face and the strangers flanking him, I knew exactly what was happening. "Mom, we need to talk." "About what?" "You're not safe here. We've made arrangements. Meadowbrook has a room ready for you. These professionals are here to help with the transition." "I'm not going anywhere." "Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be." One of the people in scrubs stepped forward. A woman, mid-40s. Kind eyes that didn't match what she was doing. "Mrs. Whitmore, my name is Linda. I'm here to help you get ready. We want to make this as comfortable as possible for you. Get out of my house. Mom, you don't have a choice. The evaluation is scheduled for next week, but Dr. Stevens recommended immediate placement for your safety. I don't consent to this. You don't have to consent. I have temporary guardianship, signed by a judge, based on Dr. Stevens's assessment." He pulled out papers, official papers, legal papers. My son had gone to a judge, had convinced a judge that I was a danger to myself, had obtained legal authority over me, all without me knowing, all before I could defend myself. I looked at Daniel, really looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I love you, Mom. Because someone has to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "From making mistakes, from being taken advantage of, from spending down your assets on things you don't need." There it was. Finally. The truth underneath all the concern. Assets. This wasn't about my safety. This was about money. My house. My savings. My investments. Everything Robert and I had built. Daniel needed it, or wanted it, or felt entitled to it. And the fastest way to get it was to have me declared incompetent and take control. "You're making a mistake," I said quietly. "No, Mom, I'm fixing one." The people in scrubs moved closer. Professional? Efficient? This wasn't their first time doing this. "We'd like you to pack a bag, Mrs. Whitmore, just essentials, clothes, toiletries, medications. We'll help you." "And if I refuse?" Linda glanced at Daniel. "Then we'll have to proceed with an involuntary transport. We'd really prefer not to do that." An involuntary transport. They'd carry me out of my own house, strap me down if necessary, treat me like I was violent, dangerous, incapable. I looked around my bedroom. The bed Robert and I had shared for 40 years. The dresser with photos of Daniel as a baby, as a child, graduating from college. The window overlooking the garden. Everything I loved was in this house, and my son was taking it away. "I'll pack my own bag," I said. Daniel looked relieved. He actually looked relieved, like he'd been afraid I'd fight, like he was proud of himself for handling this so smoothly. "Thank you, Mom. You're doing the right thing." I didn't respond. I went to my closet, pulled out a small suitcase, started packing: underwear, socks, a few shirts, pants, a sweater, my medications from the bathroom. The whole time, Linda stood in the doorway, watching, making sure I didn't do anything erratic. Daniel stood in the hallway on his phone, already moving on to the next thing. I zipped the suitcase, looked around the room one more time, then I walked out. They led me through my own house like I was a patient, a problem, a person who couldn't be trusted. Daniel walked ahead, already discussing logistics with the other transport worker, a man named Steve. We stepped outside. The morning was beautiful, clear sky, birds singing. The roses Robert had planted were blooming. A van was parked in my driveway, white, professional, medical transport printed on the side. They were putting me in a van, like I was cargo. Linda helped me into the back. The seats were comfortable enough. Seatbelts, windows, but it wasn't my car. It wasn't my choice. Daniel leaned in. "Mom, I'll come visit tomorrow. Get you settled in. Bring some things from the house. Okay?" I looked at my son. "Okay," I said, because what else could I say? The door closed. The engine started. We pulled out of the driveway. I watched my house disappear behind us. 42 years of my life, everything I'd built, everything I'd loved, gone. We drove across town, 30 minutes. Linda made small talk. Asked about my grandchildren, my hobbies, my favorite foods, trying to make this normal, trying to make this okay. I answered politely, briefly, because I was thinking. Meadowbrook Senior Living was exactly what Daniel had promised. High-end, beautiful landscaping, clean, modern, staff members smiling and greeting residents by name. It was also a locked facility. They processed me like a new admission, paperwork, medical history, emergency contacts, which they listed as Daniel without asking me. Orientation to the rules. Residents are free to move about the common areas during the day, the intake coordinator explained. The front doors are secured for safety, but you can go to the courtyard, the library, the activity rooms. Meals are at set times. We encourage you to join our social events. "When can I leave?" She smiled, patient, practiced. "That will be determined by your care team and your guardian. Mr. Whitmore has requested weekly updates on your adjustment and cognitive status." "I don't need a guardian." "I understand this is an adjustment, Mrs. Whitmore. Many of our residents feel that way initially. But you'll be surprised how quickly this feels like home." This would never feel like home. They showed me to my room, private as Daniel had promised. Nice furniture, a window, a bathroom, also a camera in the corner. For my safety, they said. Linda helped me unpack my small bag. "Is there anything else you need, Mrs. Whitmore?" "My freedom." She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I'll check on you later. Dinner is at 5:30. We'll come get you." Then she left. I sat on the bed. A bed that wasn't mine in a room that wasn't mine in a life that was no longer mine. And I let myself feel it. The rage, the betrayal, the absolute grief of losing everything to the person you'd given everything to. I cried. For the first time since Robert died, I cried. Not because I was broken, but because I needed to let it out before I could think clearly. Because even then, even in that moment, I was thinking. Daniel had made a mistake. He thought I was weak, confused, easy to control. He thought that getting me into this facility was the end of the game, but it was only the beginning. At my age, you learn something important. You learn that silence can be comforting, or it can be a warning. You learn that people mistake quietness for weakness. You learn that the most dangerous person in the room is often the one everyone underestimates. I wiped my eyes, washed my face, looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't done, not even close. I sat down at the small desk in my room. They'd provided paper and pens. How thoughtful. I started making a list. Everything I knew, everything I'd noticed, every lie Daniel had told, every document he'd manipulated, every move he'd made. I had 42 years of experience managing a household, raising a child, supporting a husband, building a life. I knew how to organize, how to plan, how to be methodical. And I knew my son. I knew he was impatient. I knew he made mistakes when he thought he'd already won. I knew he'd get sloppy. I just had to wait, and watch, and gather evidence. That first night at Meadowbrook, I didn't sleep much. I lay in that unfamiliar bed and ran through everything I knew. Daniel had power of attorney, temporary guardianship, legal control of my affairs. But he didn't have power of attorney when he started going through my house. He didn't have guardianship when he paid Dr. Stevens to write a false evaluation. He didn't have authorization when he retained my lawyer, creating a conflict of interest. He'd acted before he had legal authority, which meant he'd committed fraud, if I could prove it. The next morning, I went to breakfast, met other residents, smiled, participated, made small talk. I needed them to see me as sharp, capable, friendly. I needed the staff to see me as cooperative, pleasant, easy. I needed no one to see me as a threat, because I was about to become one. After breakfast, I asked to use the phone. There was a courtesy phone in the common area for residents to use. Of course, Mrs. Whitmore. Do you need help dialing? No, thank you. I remember how phones work. I called the one person I knew Daniel hadn't gotten to, my cousin Margaret. She lived 3 states away. We talked every few months. She was 81 and sharp as a knife. Eleanor, I wasn't expecting to hear from you. Margaret, I need your help. I told her everything. Quickly. Clearly. No emotion. Just facts. Margaret listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. That boy always was too smart for his own good. What do you need? A lawyer. Someone Daniel doesn't know. Someone who specializes in elder law and guardianship abuse. I know someone, Catherine Park. She's in your city, brilliant, tough. She'll eat Daniel for breakfast if what you're telling me is true. It's true. I'll call her today. Tell her to expect to hear from you. Do you have money for a retainer? Daniel has control of my accounts. I'll handle the retainer. You can pay me back later. If you have a case, you'll get access to your own funds again. Margaret, don't thank me yet. Just win. I hung up, feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. That afternoon, Daniel visited. He came with Claire, both of them smiling, cheerful, bringing me a bag of items from the house. How are you settling in, Mom? Fine. The staff says you've been very cooperative. I'm glad. What choice do I have? Mom, I know you're angry with me, but someday you'll understand. I'm doing what's best. I looked at him. This man I'd carried for 9 months, fed, bathed, raised, loved. I understand more than you think. Something flickered in his eyes, just for a second. Uncertainty. Good. Well, I brought you some things. Photo albums, your favorite blanket, Some books. He set the bag down, started pulling items out. I noticed he'd brought my address book, my personal calendar, some papers from my desk. He was controlling what I had access to, making sure I couldn't contact people he didn't approve of. Too late. Thank you, Daniel. I also wanted to let you know we're going to start going through the house, clearing some things out, making it easier to maintain. You're selling my house. We're making decisions about the property. You're not going back there, Mom. You need to accept that. I see. The evaluation hearing is next week. I've been told it's mostly a formality at this point. Once you're officially under permanent guardianship, we can handle everything much more smoothly. He said it like he was doing me a favor. Will I be at the hearing? Of course. You have the right to be present. Do I have the right to legal representation? He hesitated. You can have a court-appointed advocate. But honestly, Mom, it'll go much easier if you don't fight this. Fighting it just makes you look more confused. There it was, the threat underneath the concern. Cooperate or we'll use your resistance as evidence against you. I smiled, a small, tired smile. I won't fight, Daniel. Relief flooded his face. Thank you, Mom. I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing. He hugged me. I let him. Over his shoulder, I saw Claire watching me. Her expression was harder to read. When they left, I sat alone with my thoughts. I had 5 days until the hearing. 5 days to build a case. 5 days to prove I wasn't incompetent. 5 days to destroy my son's lies. I got to work. First, I requested to see my medical records. Residents had a right to review their own files. The staff was happy to provide them. I read every page, found Dr. Stevens' evaluation, read his conclusions. Patient exhibits signs of confusion, memory loss, and impaired judgment. Recommend supervised living environment and guardianship to prevent self-harm and financial exploitation. Every word was a lie, but he'd written it carefully, used medical terminology, made it sound objective. I needed evidence that I wasn't any of those things. I started participating in everything: memory games, book club, exercise classes. I engaged with staff, showed interest, demonstrated clarity and capability. Every interaction was evidence. I also started talking to other residents. Carefully, listening to their stories. Several of them had similar experiences. Family members who'd put them in facilities against their will. Assets that mysteriously disappeared. Children who visited less and less until they stopped visiting at all. One woman, Patricia, had been in Meadowbrook for 2 years. Her daughter had taken power of attorney and sold her house. Patricia never saw a penny. My lawyer said there's nothing I can do. She had legal authority. Did she have legal authority before she started taking things? Patricia looked at me, sharp, interested. No, she started going through my things months before any paperwork was signed. That's fraud. Can you prove it? Not anymore. Everything's gone. But I could prove it, because I was only 2 days in, because I still had time. On the 3rd day, I received a call from Catherine Park. The staff let me take it in a private office, said my cousin had arranged for legal consultation. Catherine's voice was crisp, professional, no nonsense. Mrs. Whitmore, I've reviewed the information Margaret provided. If what you've told her is accurate, we have grounds to challenge the guardianship. It's accurate. Then we need to move fast. The hearing is in 2 days. I know. I need documentation. Proof that you're mentally competent. Proof that your son has been acting improperly. Proof that Dr. Stevens' evaluation was biased or fraudulent. Do you have any of that? I have my own records. I've been documenting everything since I arrived here. Good, but that's not enough. We need more. What do you need? Can you access your bank statements? Not from here. Do you have account numbers memorized? I smiled. I'm 73, not senile. I remember every account number, routing number, and password I've ever had. I heard her laugh. Just a little. Mrs. Whitmore, I think we're going to get along just fine. I'll file an emergency motion today to allow you independent legal representation at the hearing. We'll argue you have the right to counsel of your own choosing. The judge should grant it. And if he doesn't, then we'll appeal. But I don't think it'll come to that. Judges don't like guardianship proceedings that smell fishy, and this one reeks. For the first time in days, I felt something like triumph. Thank you, Catherine. Don't thank me yet. We have a lot of work to do. We spent an hour on the phone. I provided account information, dates, names, every detail I could remember about Daniel's behavior over the past 8 months. Catherine promised to subpoena my bank records, my medical records from my actual doctor, not Dr. Stevens, character witnesses. I'm also going to request a new psychiatric evaluation from an independent doctor, not one your son chose. How fast can that happen? If I push, we can get it done before the hearing. Do it. The next day, I met with Dr. Rachel Nguyen, a psychiatrist Catherine had recommended. No connection to Daniel. Dr. Nguyen was thorough. She spent 3 hours with me, asked questions, gave me tests, talked to me about my life, my routines, my capabilities. At the end, she closed her notebook. Mrs. Whitmore, I see absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline. Your memory is excellent. Your judgment is sound. Your reasoning is clear. Whatever Dr. Stevens put in his evaluation, it's not based on reality. Can you testify to that? I'll be at the hearing tomorrow. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I went over everything in my mind, every piece of evidence, every argument, every possible way this could go wrong. But I also thought about something else. Daniel thought he'd won. He thought putting me in Meadowbrook was the end. He thought I'd given up. He'd underestimated me my entire life. Tomorrow, he'd learn exactly what that mistake cost him. The hearing was at 9 a.m. in family court. Catherine met me outside, professional, confident. Are you ready? Yes. Remember, stay calm. Answer questions directly. Don't get emotional. The judge needs to see you as competent and rational. I am competent and rational. I know. Let's make sure he knows it too. We walked into the courtroom. Daniel was already there, with Claire, with their lawyer, with Dr. Stevens. All of them confident, all of them expecting this to be a formality. Daniel saw me with Catherine. His expression shifted, confusion, then concern. He hadn't expected me to have my own lawyer. The judge entered, Judge Howard Chen, mid-50s, stern but fair, according to Catherine's research. All rise. We stood. The formalities were observed. Then we sat. Judge Chen reviewed the documents in front of him. We're here today regarding the guardianship petition filed by Daniel Whitmore concerning his mother, Eleanor Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore is seeking permanent guardianship based on concerns about his mother's mental competency. He looked up. I see Mrs. Whitmore has retained independent counsel. Catherine stood. Yes, Your Honor. Catherine Park representing Mrs. Whitmore. We're challenging this guardianship petition on multiple grounds. Daniel's lawyer stood quickly. A man named Richard Brennan. Expensive suit. Practiced smile. Your Honor, while Mrs. Whitmore certainly has the right to counsel, we question whether she has the capacity to meaningfully participate in these proceedings. The medical evidence clearly shows. I'll determine what the evidence shows, Mr. Brennan. Please sit down. Judge Chen looked at me. Mrs. Whitmore, do you understand why we're here today? I stood. Catherine had coached me on this. Yes, Your Honor. My son believes I'm mentally incompetent and unable to manage my own affairs. He's seeking permanent guardianship over me and my estate. I'm here to prove that I am competent and that this petition is based on false information. My voice was steady, clear, strong. Judge Chen nodded. All right, Mr. Brennan, present your case. Daniel's lawyer stood again, opened his folder. Your Honor, Daniel Whitmore is a loving son who has watched his mother's cognitive decline with increasing concern. Over the past 8 months, he's observed numerous incidents that suggest Mrs. Whitmore is no longer capable of living independently or managing her finances safely. He went on to list supposed incidents: leaving the stove on, forgetting appointments, confusion about dates, difficulty managing bills, erratic behavior. Every single item was a lie, but he said it with such confidence, presenting it as established fact. Additionally, Your Honor, we have a professional psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Gerald Stevens, a board-certified geriatric psychiatrist with 30 years of experience. Dr. Stevens stood, testified, repeated everything from his report. Made me sound like a woman barely capable of dressing herself. He was good, professional, convincing. When he finished, Judge Chen looked at me. "Mrs. Whitmore, would you like to cross-examine?" Catherine stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Dr. Stevens, how long did you spend with Mrs. Whitmore during your evaluation?" "Approximately 45 minutes. "And this was your only meeting with her?" "Yes." "Did you review any prior medical records? Speak to her primary care physician? Gather any history beyond what Mr. Whitmore provided?" Dr. Stevens hesitated. "I relied on the family's report and my own clinical assessment." "So you based your entire evaluation on information provided by the person seeking guardianship and a single 45-minute conversation. That's standard practice in these assessments. Is it? Or is it standard practice to conduct a thorough, multi-session evaluation before declaring someone mentally incompetent?" "Objection, Your Honor." Brennan was on his feet. Argumentative. Sustained. "Ms. Park, ask a question or move on." Catherine nodded. "Dr. Stevens, how much were you paid for this evaluation? I don't see how that's relevant. Please answer the question." $5,000. Quite a substantial fee for 45 minutes of work. Who paid you? "Mr. Whitmore." "The same Mr. Whitmore who stands to gain control of his mother's estate if she's declared incompetent?" "Objection. Overruled. I'll allow it." "Dr. Stevens, answer the question." "Mr. Whitmore paid my fee, yes, but that doesn't affect my professional judgment." "Of course not. No further questions." Catherine sat down. I could see Daniel shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Then Catherine called her first witness. "Your Honor, we'd like to call Dr. Rachel Nguyen." Dr. Nguyen took the stand, testified to her credentials, then described her 3-hour evaluation of me. "I found Mrs. Whitmore to be fully competent. Her memory is excellent. She scored in the 98th percentile on cognitive function tests. She demonstrated clear understanding of her finances, her medications, her daily routines. She was articulate, logical, and emotionally appropriate. I found absolutely no evidence of dementia, confusion, or impaired judgment." "And how do you explain the discrepancy between your findings and Dr. Stevens's?" "I can't explain it based on any medical reality. Either Dr. Stevens evaluated a different person, or his evaluation was not conducted properly." Brennan objected, was overruled. Tried to discredit Dr. Nguyen on cross-examination, and failed. Then Catherine called her next witness. "We call Mrs. Linda Morrison to the stand. The woman from the medical transport service, the one who'd taken me to Meadowbrook." Linda looked uncomfortable, kept glancing at Daniel. "Mrs. Morrison, you transported Mrs. Whitmore to Meadowbrook Senior Living 3 days ago, correct?" "Yes." "And during that transport, did Mrs. Whitmore exhibit any signs of confusion, aggression, or mental impairment?" "No." "How did she behave?" "She was calm, polite, answered all my questions appropriately. She was understandably upset about the situation, but her responses were completely rational." "In your professional opinion, based on years of transporting elderly patients, did Mrs. Whitmore seem like someone who needed involuntary placement?" Linda hesitated. "Answer the question, please." "No." "She seemed like someone who didn't want to be there, not someone who couldn't take care of herself." Daniel's face was getting red. Catherine smiled. "Thank you. No further questions." Then came the piece de resistance. Your Honor, we have obtained Mrs. Whitmore's bank records for the past year. With the court's permission, I'd like to enter them into evidence. Judge Chen nodded. Catherine approached the bench, handed copies to the judge, to Brennan, kept one for herself. As you can see, Mrs. Whitmore's accounts are impeccably managed. Every bill paid on time, savings properly allocated, no unusual transactions, no signs of confusion or exploitation. In fact, her financial management is more organized than most people half her age. She paused. Let that sink in. However, there are some interesting transactions here. Starting 6 months ago, there are multiple cash withdrawals from Mrs. Whitmore's account. Large ones, $5,000, $3,000, $10,000, all withdrawn by Daniel Whitmore using power of attorney. Brennan shot to his feet. Your Honor, Mr. Whitmore had POA for those transactions. Did he? Catherine pulled out another document. Because according to these records, Daniel Whitmore didn't obtain power of attorney until 3 months ago. These withdrawals began 6 months ago, which means he was accessing his mother's accounts without authorization. The courtroom went silent. Judge Chen looked at Daniel. Mr. Whitmore, did you withdraw money from your mother's accounts without her permission? Daniel stood. His face was pale now. Your Honor, my mother gave me permission, verbally. She was having trouble getting to the bank herself. Is that true, Mrs. Whitmore? Catherine nodded at me. I stood. No, Your Honor. I never gave Daniel permission to access my accounts. I didn't even know he was doing it until I reviewed these records yesterday. I never had trouble getting to the bank. I went every Tuesday, as I have for 40 years. Your Honor, Brennan interrupted, Mrs. Whitmore may not remember giving permission. That's the whole point of these proceedings. Except Dr. Nguyen just testified that Mrs. Whitmore's memory is perfect. So, which is it, Mr. Brennan? Is she competent or isn't she? You can't have it both ways. Brennan sat down. Catherine continued. There's more, Your Honor. We also have testimony from Mrs. Whitmore's primary care physician, Dr. James Patterson, who has treated her for 15 years. He submitted a written statement confirming that Mrs. Whitmore has no cognitive issues, no dementia, no mental health concerns whatsoever. He was shocked to learn that anyone had evaluated her as incompetent. She handed that to the judge, too. We also have statements from Mrs. Whitmore's book club, her volunteer coordinator at the library, her neighbors. All of them attest to her mental clarity and independence. All of them were surprised to learn she'd been placed in a nursing home. Document after document, witness after witness. Catherine had built an airtight case in less than 3 days. Judge Chen reviewed everything silently. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Finally, he looked up. Mr. Whitmore, approached the bench. Daniel stood, walked forward. He looked like a man watching his world collapse. Did you or did you not access your mother's bank accounts without authorization? Your Honor, I was trying to help her. That's not what I asked. Yes or no? A long pause. Yes. Did you retain your mother's longtime attorney, creating a conflict of interest that prevented her from obtaining legal representation? Another pause. Yes. Did you pay Dr. Stevens $5,000 to conduct an evaluation that would support your guardianship petition? I paid him his standard fee. After telling him exactly what you needed him to find? Daniel's jaw clenched. I told him my concerns. That's not the same thing. Mr. Whitmore, I've been doing this for 23 years. I know the difference between a son concerned for his mother's welfare and a son concerned about his inheritance. This petition is denied. Not only denied, but I'm ordering an investigation into your conduct. If the district attorney finds evidence of elder abuse or financial exploitation, you will face criminal charges. Daniel's face went white. Furthermore, any power of attorney you currently hold is hereby revoked. Any guardianship is dissolved. Mrs. Whitmore is restored to full control of her affairs and her assets. And Mr. Whitmore, you are to have no contact with your mother unless she specifically requests it. Do you understand? Your Honor, do you understand? Yes. Judge Chen turned to me. Mrs. Whitmore, I apologize. The system failed you. Your son failed you, but you did not fail yourself. You are free to go home. Meadowbrook will release you immediately. I stood there, taking it in. I'd won. Not just the hearing, everything. Thank you, Your Honor. Catherine gathered her documents. We walked out of the courtroom together. Behind us, I could hear Daniel and Claire arguing in hushed, furious whispers. Outside, Catherine turned to me. How do you feel? Tired, angry, relieved. You should feel proud. Not many people could have done what you just did. I had help. Yes, but you had the clarity to seek that help and the strength to fight back. A lot of people in your situation just give up. I didn't build my life by giving up. She smiled. No, you didn't. Now let's get you home. Margaret had sent a car service. Within an hour, I was standing in front of my house on Maple Street. My house, my home. I used my own key, walked through my own door. Everything was exactly as I'd left it 4 days ago. Daniel hadn't had time to start clearing things out yet, hadn't had time to sell anything or change anything. I walked through each room, touched familiar surfaces, breathed in the smell of my own space. Then I sat down in my living room and cried again. But this time it was different. This time it was relief and grief and rage and triumph all mixed together. My son had tried to steal my life, and I'd taken it back. Over the next few weeks, more came to light. The bank investigation revealed that Daniel had withdrawn nearly $40,000 from my accounts over 6 months. He'd used it to pay down his own mortgage, cover his children's private school tuition, buy a new car for Claire. All while telling me he was worried about my spending. The district attorney did file charges: elder financial abuse, fraud, forgery. Daniel had forged my signature on some of the withdrawal slips. He hired an expensive lawyer, tried to make a deal. The DA offered him probation and full restitution. Daniel would have to pay back every penny, plus penalties. He'd have to do community service. Stay away from me. He took the deal, which meant he admitted guilt. Claire filed for divorce 3 months later. She'd been humiliated. Her friends knew. Her family knew. The perfect life they'd built had crumbled because Daniel got greedy. Sophia called me, my granddaughter, 16 years old and braver than her father. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what Dad was doing. I swear I didn't know. I know, sweetheart. Mom says we can visit you if you want, if you're not too angry with us. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Sophia and Marcus were innocent. They were children. They didn't choose this. I'd like that, she cried, thanked me, promised things would be different, and they were. The kids started visiting again. Without Daniel, just them and Claire, who was painfully apologetic and clearly mortified by everything. I didn't trust Claire, might never trust her again, but I could be civil. For the kids. Daniel tried to contact me once. 6 months after the hearing, he sent a letter. I didn't open it. Whatever he had to say, whatever justification or apology or excuse he'd crafted, I didn't need to hear it. Some betrayals are too deep. Some wounds don't heal just because someone says sorry. I kept the letter, though. Put it in a box in my closet, not for me. For someday, if Daniel ever tried to rewrite history, I'd have proof of the timeline. Proof that he reached out only after consequences, not because of genuine remorse. Life settled back into its rhythm. I returned to my book club, my library volunteer work, my morning walks, but I was changed, not broken, changed. I saw the world differently now, saw people differently. I'd always believed that family was sacred, that blood meant loyalty, that mothers and sons had an unbreakable bond. I'd been wrong. Family is only as sacred as the people in it choose to make it. Blood doesn't guarantee anything, and bonds can break, even the ones you thought were permanent. But I also learned something else. I learned that I was stronger than I'd known, that even at 73, even alone, even facing systems and people designed to strip away my power, I could fight back and win. I learned that age doesn't make you weak, it makes you dangerous, because you've lived long enough to see every trick, every lie, every manipulation. You've lived long enough to know what matters and what doesn't. You've lived long enough to stop caring what people think and start caring about what's true. And I learned that sometimes the people you're supposed to trust most are the ones who'll hurt you worst. But that doesn't mean you stop trusting. It means you get smarter about who deserves it. I still live in my house on Maple Street. I still tend Robert's roses. I still do the Sunday crossword in pen. But now, I also check my bank statements weekly. I have a lawyer on retainer. I have copies of all my important documents in 3 different locations. I learned to protect myself, because I can't trust anyone else to do it. Some people might think that's sad. I think it's powerful. 1 year after the hearing, on a Tuesday morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table drinking coffee when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I approached the door cautiously, looked through the peephole. Daniel. My heart clenched. Part fear, part anger, part something I didn't want to examine too closely. I could not answer. I had every right not to answer. But I opened the door anyway. He looked older, thinner, like the past year had hollowed him out from the inside. Mom. What do you want, Daniel? To talk. Just for a minute. Please. I should have said no. Should have closed the door. Should have reminded him about the no-contact order that technically had expired but still carried weight. Instead, I stepped aside. 5 minutes. He walked in, looked around like he was seeing the house for the first time. We sat in the living room. The same living room where we'd opened Christmas presents, where I'd taught him to read, where Robert had given him advice about college and careers and life. I don't know how to start, Daniel said finally. Then don't. Say what you came to say. He took a deep breath. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know sorry doesn't fix what I did. But I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it. I didn't respond. I told myself I was protecting you, that I knew better, that you needed me to make decisions because you couldn't. But the truth is, I was scared. Of what? Of losing you, and of losing everything we'd built. Dad's death messed me up more than I admitted. And then watching you get older, seeing you slow down, I panicked. I thought if I could control everything, I could prevent bad things from happening. I could keep you safe and keep our family's assets secure, and it would all work out. He looked at me. His eyes were red. But I was lying to myself. It wasn't about protecting you. It was about me, about my fear, about wanting to feel like I had power over something I couldn't control. And I hurt you. I tried to take away everything you are, everything you built. And I can't take that back. Silence filled the room. You're right, I said finally. You can't take it back. I know. You destroyed something, Daniel. You destroyed trust. You destroyed the relationship between a mother and son. You made me afraid of my own child. Do you understand how that feels? No, but I'm trying to. Are you? Or are you here because you've served your probation and paid your fines and now you want absolution? You want me to forgive you so you can feel better about yourself? I want you to know I'm sorry, whether you forgive me or not. I studied him. This man who'd been a baby in my arms, a child at my table, a teenager testing boundaries, a young man making his way in the world. This man who'd tried to steal my life. I don't know if I can forgive you, Daniel. I don't know if that's even possible. What you did wasn't just wrong, it was cruel. It was calculated. It was a betrayal of everything we were supposed to mean to each other. I know. But I also know something else. I know that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I know that forgiveness isn't about you. It's about me. It's about whether I want to spend the rest of my life being your victim or being free. I paused, choosing my words carefully. So here's what I can offer you. I can't forgive you right now, maybe not ever, but I can let go of my anger. I can stop letting what you did define my life. I can move forward. That's the best I can do. Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his face. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. He stood to leave, walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, Mom, I see you now, really see you. And I'm sorry it took all this for me to understand how strong you are, how capable, how much I underestimated you. You didn't underestimate me, Daniel. You stopped seeing me. There's a difference. He left. I watched through the window as he got in his car and drove away. I didn't feel triumphant, didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired and sad, and weirdly, almost peaceful. Some endings aren't happy. They're just over. And sometimes that's enough. I went back to my kitchen, poured myself another cup of coffee, sat at the table where Robert and I had shared thousands of mornings. The sun was coming through the window, landing on the wood in that way that made everything look golden and warm. I picked up my phone, called Margaret. "How are you doing?" she asked. "I'm okay. Better than okay." "Good. You deserve to be." "Margaret, thank you for everything, for believing me, for helping me, for the lawyer and the money and just being there. Eleanor, we're family, real family, the kind that shows up. Real family, the kind that shows up, not the kind that shares your blood, the kind that shares your burden." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about everything I'd learned. I'd learned that getting older doesn't mean becoming invisible. It means becoming clear-sighted. It means seeing through the lies people tell, including the ones they tell themselves. I'd learned that vulnerability isn't weakness, but neither is strength. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be diminished. I'd learned that systems designed to protect us can also trap us. That good intentions pave roads to terrible places. That paperwork and procedures can be weapons in the wrong hands. I'd learned that fighting back isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's methodical. Sometimes it's just refusing to accept the story someone else is trying to write about your life. And I'd learned something Robert used to say, something I didn't fully understand until now. "Eleanor, growing old is mandatory. Growing weak is optional." He was right. Age had given me everything I needed to survive what Daniel did. Experience, clarity, patience, the ability to see the long game, the wisdom to know when to be quiet and when to strike. Age hadn't weakened me. It had weaponized me. I finished my coffee, stood up, walked to the window. The roses were blooming, Robert's roses, the ones he'd planted 20 years ago, telling me they'd outlive us both. He was wrong about that. He was gone. But the roses remained, and so did I. I'm 73 years old. I live alone in a house on Maple Street. My son tried to steal my life, and I took it back. Some people would say I should be bitter, angry, broken by betrayal. But I'm not. I'm free. Free from illusions about family. Free from expectations about loyalty. Free from the idea that love means accepting mistreatment. I'm free to live on my own terms, to make my own choices, to be exactly who I am without apology or explanation. And that freedom? That's worth more than any inheritance, more than any relationship, more than any false peace bought by silence. I didn't build my life by accepting what I couldn't change. I built it by changing what I couldn't accept, and that's what I did. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're being diminished or dismissed or told you're not capable, if someone who claims to love you is trying to take control of your life, I want you to know something. You are not too old to fight back. You are not too confused to know what's happening. You are not too weak to win. Age teaches you more than forgiveness. It teaches you clarity, strength, strategy. Don't let anyone convince you that getting older means getting smaller. It doesn't. It means getting sharper. And sometimes the sharpest weapon you have is simply refusing to be erased. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I'm 73 years old. I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere.